It is Tuesday, April 22nd, 2025, and a lot's going on in the world. We'll be talking about that here on the World Edition, seeing what folks have to say about that. And if you folks in the audience have comments as well, definitely chime in. And that is what the QR code is there for. And all along those lines, or just chime in on the comment section. But apparently, the Vatican is saying that Pope Francis died from a stroke followed by heart failure. So definitely, they're still trying to have debates beginning over his successor. So his body is to lie in state until the funeral on Saturday morning. And what looks like the White House may be looking to replace Pete Hegseth as defense secretary. At least that's what an official told NPR, even though there are some folks in the administration that are denying those claims. But definitely we'll see how this all plays out, as this all has to do with that signal gate and all in that space. So we'll see what happens in that regards. And Elizabeth Warren says we're starting to see the cracks of fear in Trump after the latest Pete Hegseth scandal. So that is something else that folks are talking about in the news as well. So definitely a lot is going on in that space, and we'll see what folks have to say about some of these important news stories and all along those lines. Uh, some people are talking about coming back to Pope Francis. Pope Francis's final hours and gratitude for returning to the square. Final days of Pope, who joined the Vatican crowds at Easter despite his doctor's advice. And definitely, Pope Francis, in some of his last words, thanked the nurse for the chance to greet the Easter crowd, according to the Vatican. So the Vatican is definitely saying that that happened. And of course, we do know that he met with J.D. Vance, I think the day before he had passed away, and all along those lines. And man missing after a rare shark attack in Israel. So, swimmer missing following an extremely rare shark attack near busy tourist beach. So, shark drew crowds who chased and feed them off the Israel's coast until apparently one man disappeared. So, police are searching for the feared shark victim and all in that way. So, it definitely looks like a shark attack in even the Middle East, which is having its own conflicts as well. So definitely a lot's going on in that place. And Harvard sues Trump administration over threats to cut fundings if they don't do some of the demands that he's talking about. So Trump froze funding for Harvard. Money to these universities may also be on the chopping block. So definitely it looks like there is a whole clash going on between President Trump and Harvard and all in that space. So we'll see what goes on in there and what folks have to say about that. IMF is slashing 2025 U.S. growth forecast by 1.8% from 2.7%, citing trade tensions. So the International Monetary Fund says the economic outlooks for the U.S. and the world have worsened significantly due to the trade war. And IMF says Trump's tariffs will be a drag on the global economic growth. So definitely that's something that folks will be looking at as to how the tariffs are impacting the global community and all in that way. And the Supreme Court will be debating if elementary schools may skip parental notice for LGBTQ plus reading. So the Supreme Court will be hearing clash over LGBTQ storybooks and parents' demand for opt-outs. So definitely the Supreme Court will be weighing on who should decide public school curriculum, judges, or school boards. So it looks like they'll be taking up religious rights dispute over those LGBTQ plus books in Maryland. So we'll see how this all plays out as well. So definitely that is something that folks will be paying attention to and seeing what goes on in that space and what happens in that regard. So it ought to be interesting to see what folks' reactions are to a number of these news stories that are taking place and what might be going on in that sense. So, like I said, a lot's taking place in the world, and we're always glad to be reporting on it here on Pod TV. Karen Reed's second murder trial revives debate over who killed her Boston police officer. I believe that was the trial that she was in. So the second Karen Reed trial set to begin with opening arguments, and it looks like this will be a retrial. I know there was that retrial of or resentencing, I guess, of the Menendez brothers, but we'll see how all of this plays out. Haley Stevens has launched her Senate bid in Michigan. So she's entered the Michigan Senate race, a key test of the Democratic direction. So it looks like she's jumped into a crowded Michigan Senate race, and we'll see how she fares in her particular race. And it looks like some people are saying, like in Politico, why Dems keep talking about due process in the case of the man mistakenly deported to El Salvador. So as Democrats rally around Abrego Garcia's case, some worry a due process argument won't land with voters. We had a little bit of that conversation going on yesterday, right here between Shaquille, Nick, and Jacoby, and we'll see what other folks have to say as well. So apparently, Abrego Garcia's husband was mistakenly deported. Now she's caught in the political frenzy. So we'll see how this all plays out as well. And of course, like I said earlier, it does look like there might be efforts to replace Pete Hedges, and he hasn't been in office that long or in that much of a space. But we'll see how this all plays out and what goes on in that regard. So the White House is looking to replace Pete Hedges as defense secretary, and that is something that is being reported in the news, and we'll see if that is true or not true. And J.D. Vance says Trump seeks to rebalance global trade while announcing progress on the U.S.-India trade talks. So Vance in India hails progress on the trade talks, and India's Modi and U.S. Vice President Vance are optimistic on the New Delhi-Washington trade deal. So Vance warns of very dark times without a close U.S.-India tie. And an ex-U.S. senator's wife has been convicted in the gold bars bribery scheme. So the wife of former U.S. Senator Bob Menendez has been convicted in that bribery scheme. Then Nadine Menendez is found guilty of taking bribes and obstructing justice. So that's something else that is going on in the news. And over 150 U.S. university presidents signed a letter decrying the Trump administration. So more than 100 colleges and universities issue a letter condemning Trump's political interference. Massachusetts college presidents lead the pushback as over 100 leaders called out Trump's overreach. So that's something else going on, and we'll see if folks actually believe that that was an overreach. And protests draw thousands to Daley Plaza in Chicago. We have a civic duty, and it looks like Venezuelan immigrants deported by the Trump administration may be part of the rallying cry behind these protests. I know there were some here in the Triangle as well. And the White House Easter egg roll featured big tech logos and branding. I understand that Amazon, or maybe it wasn't Amazon, but it was YouTube, Meta, and I forget the third one, but they were the major sponsors of that particular event for the kids that was taking place on Easter Monday, and apparently Melania Trump opted for the trench coat at the White House Easter egg roll. So definitely that's something going on. And they're saying that 30,000 eggs were used at the White House egg roll. And some folks are asking why were they used when there is a bird flu/egg crisis. So that's what the USA Today was asking, and all in that space. And as far as the Ukraine war, Putin suggests Russia is open to direct talks with Kyiv. So Putin ready for direct talks with Ukraine, a spokesperson says, and Putin is suggesting he's open to a Ukraine ceasefire talks with Zelensky. So it sounds like there might be some conversations, and we'll see if that actually takes place or if that's just noise happening and they're not actually going to sit down and have a conversation about a peace plan. But we'll see what goes on in that space. And some folks are asking, why has China warned countries against appeasing Trump in trade deals? So China warns nations against appeasing the U.S. in trade deals. And definitely Beijing is warning countries against colluding with the U.S. to restrict trade with China. So like I said, there's a lot going on in the world, including the DHS Secretary Noem, Christine Noem's purse stolen at an Easter dinner with family in D.C. So her bag, including $3,000 in cash, was stolen from a D.C. restaurant where apparently they were eating at, and all in that kind of way. And guns, extreme views, and chaotic childhood apparently shaped the suspect in the Florida State shooting. So 2 victims killed in the Florida State campus shooting have been identified, and definitely a lot of folks were going through a lot in that horrific attack as well. And new image could change cancer diagnostics. So that is something going on. But this could be stalled by an ICE incident. So detained over frog embryos. They're saying that this Russian-born Harvard scientist arrested in Boston could stall a major research development and all in that space. So we'll see how this all goes on as well. And Mahmoud Kalal's son arrives after ICE refuses to let him attend the birth of his son. So it looks like he missed his son's birth after ICE officials denied his request to be there. So Mahmoud Galal's wife gave birth while he remains in ICE custody in Louisiana. So, like I said, lots going on in the world and around the world. But I know I got Nick with me. I'll see what Nick's got going on in his mind. I don't know anybody else here. Don't see Kim or anybody else in the house. But how is the things going there in Spain? I know you've got that lovely dog of yours over there, and you're having fun with them and all in that space. But how are things going outside of the pup and everything like that? And what are folks saying about Trump and tariffs in Spain?
They're not talking about it right now because the European Union looks like they're going to negotiate a settlement with the tariffs. So the thing is, I think in that particular case that the issue is going to go away. Now, here's the big one, which we're going to go over tonight at the lawyer's den. It deals whether or not Trump even has the authority to impose tariffs. I mean, it goes right to the root of the matter. And this is, to me, a very interesting. Eventually, we're going to get here, no matter what, because it deals with who has the power. Is it the legislative branch, these people over here, which is Congress, or is it the executive branch, which we're not showing in my background right now? Yeah. And the real question is, who makes the laws in the United States? Is it the executive branch or the legislative branch? So, lawsuit was filed, I think it was VOS versus Donald Trump. And the thing is, we're going to have the attorney who filed the suit at the United States International Trade Court. And the real issue is whether or not Trump even has the authority to impose these tariffs, because it looks like the legal support is very weak for him to do the tariffs. It's a legislative function. In other words, Congress is supposed to create the tariffs, not the executive branch. And then the further arguments go whether or not Congress can even delegate that. In other words, and this is also a very important constitutional issue, can Congress create a law and delegate to Mark Lee the ability to do all the tariffs in the United States? Can they do that? Well, Mark, I hate to say it, probably not. So is this a unconstitutional delegation of power? So what we're going to see, and we're going to see this eventually, so it doesn't matter. Either this case or another case like this will reach the Supreme Court of the United States, either be on immigration or tariffs. And the real question is the executive authority. So we're going to be discussing it with the lead counsel who actually drafted the complaint and filed it. And there were like 5 other attorneys. It's law
show on this evening and everything. But speaking of overreaching your steps and everything, and I know there are some folks, including some folks of different religious groups, that might be happy about this. But I just wondering, will he also run into a problem? Because apparently Trump has got another issue that he is very much excited about and all along those lines. So there are a couple of articles that I didn't get to where they said that the president wants to make America pregnant again, meaning that he's got these dystopian plans to get women to have more babies. And apparently he is a powerful ally in this notion, and I guess maybe giving us some credits and maybe some other kinds of breaks in order to encourage women to have children again and all in that space, because I think the birth rate has been declining here in the U.S. and people have been waiting to have babies at a later age because of economics and everything like that. But I know that even with Roe versus Wade, they didn't want to necessarily get involved in some of the things with women's bodies and all along those lines, but now they want the women to get pregnant. So this be a case of him maybe overstepping his bounds with some of these plans that don't really have much to do with the economy, and if anything, it might hurt the economy because babies are expensive and everything. But wanting to get more women, young ladies, pregnant and everything like that, and apparently offering some incentives to get the young ladies to have more children.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is that they might be able to do something in terms of incentives, but what gets me about the administration is we do have some real issues here that we've discussed on Economics Monday with the Honorable David M. Walker. One of them, the real issue is, of course, healthcare. In other words, Medicare, Medicaid. The cost of the United States is twice as much as any other country. And then the other problem that we have is Social Security Trust Fund and the Medicare Trust Fund both running out of money. Now, those are serious problems that need to be addressed. They're being ignored. Instead, we're on this tariff campaign, which is bizarre.
We're on a campaign, and apparently we're on a baby campaign because apparently the Trump administration is exploring options like reserving 30% of Fulbright scholarships to applicants who are parents and or married, giving mothers that $5,000 baby bonus that Trump promised during the campaign season, and even a government-funded program to better educate women on their own menstrual cycle so that they know when they should be trying for a baby. So apparently there's a lot of efforts that will be out there to try to get more women to have children. And of course, the Carolyn Levitt, the press secretary, says the president wants America to be a country where all children can safely grow up and achieve the American dream. As a mother myself, I am proud to work for a president who's taken significant action to leave a better country for the next generation. So that's what her view of this whole notion of additional babies is, and all along those lines. Apparently, he's got the incentives that he wants to do, in a sense, to get some children out there.
Well, the problem is you still have a big economic imbalance in the United States. 1% owes 30%, top 10% owes 90%, and the bottom 50% own 2.8% of the nation's wealth. So, with this huge economic imbalance, it's hard to do anything. And also with the huge debt, it's hard to maneuver when you're straddled with 37 trillion in the hole. So we thought we were going to see fiscal responsibility with Doge. Instead, we saw a lot of more chaos. And it wasn't a surgery. It was a hack job. It was almost like, what do you have? Is a chainsaw? Okay. So you didn't have the skill of an artful surgeon going in and changing the culture of Congress to make it more efficient. Instead, you had a guy with a chainsaw. It's ridiculous.
But what is he doing?
They turn out to be a big failure. Yeah. And then on the other side, Mark, they're passing a law to reduce taxes and increase the debt another $4.5 trillion. So we have what is brought to the American public is disingenuous at this point in time.
Disingenuous in that way, Nick. I was amazed when I heard some of the sponsors, because they did do this Easter egg roll and everything. And I think that definitely in Meta and YouTube, I forgot the third sponsors were the sponsors. And then they went and bought a tremendous amount of eggs that they went rolling when we're supposed to have an egg shortage and everything. And I did not realize how much it costs to go to the Easter egg hunt, because I don't think that a lot of the common people of DC got to go to the Easter egg hunt, because there was some significant charge to get into the Easter egg hunt. I've got to find the article that I saw, but it was not a cheap endeavor, and unlike the ones that I know that the team that Jacoby's working on with in terms of local things doing an Easter egg. It was a lot cheaper here in Durham than it was on the White House, because the White House prices were ridiculous. I'm thinking only the rich and the affluent could afford to come to the Easter egg hunt in DC. So, Jacoby, have you heard about these costs in the Easter egg hunt there in DC, and what was your take on that? Because when I saw some of these prices, I was going like, wait a minute.
I mean, the Easter egg hunt I don't really care about, because, again, it was just a ploy to get more money. I think Nick is actually pointing out something that is very important, and that was talking about how we're turning into the Handmaid's Tale. Right. And this whole idea that they're trying to push people to get pregnant without having to make it affordable or doing anything to help make families a possibility. The whole idea that, they're going to get behind IVF and all this other stuff. Well, they cut the department. How does that help? You can say the words, but then you cut the department. That's not going to help families. That's going to. So yes, I agree with Nick that the whole family thing is extremely disingenuous. But it's that it sounds like The Handmaid's Tale. That's
Yeah.
That's exactly what they're doing.
Yeah, and Doge right now is not doing their job. I mean, the thing is, their whole job was to make government more efficient, which actually you need to put some thought. And like David Walker is right, you got to get consensus from both sides of the aisle. You have to show them what the problem is, which is a long-term and short-term problem, and create some solutions for that. And then once you do that, which I agree should reduce the expenses, you then have to keep the income coming in, if not increase it. Now, this latest budget, which I know a lot of people don't follow, as soon as it's published, we go over it every year. And they're supposed to publish it on time. And like David Walker says, they never haven't published it on time in years. But the latest one that's proposed by the Senate and the House actually increases the deficit and the debt another $4.5 trillion. It actually is extremely bad. It lowers revenues because it encourages more tax breaks. They don't need tax breaks. They need to increase revenues from every possible source so they get a handle on this debt that keeps increasing, 37 trillion. Now, let's say you don't do it, which is what they're not doing. Then you have groups like China, for example, which is the second largest holder of our national debt, to hold hostage the entire U.S. government by saying we're going to sell off our debt, or we're not going to buy any more U.S. debt. And so and then it just drives up the interest rate, the prices of debt. And right now it's the number one budget item in the United States. So when are Americans going to wake up and see you have an extremely fiscally irresponsible administration with a really fiscal troubled country right now? 37 trillion is nothing to sneeze about. Now, I know Dr. Sharif is in Bangladesh and goes, hey, send money over here. Well, that would be nice, Dr. Sharif, but we don't have any money.
Well,
Buy goods from Bangladesh.
speaking of Bangladesh,
possible. We'll be buying goods from Bangladesh because we do have money for goods and services and things of that nature. So working with countries like Bangladesh can actually help the United States. Having this crazy tariff war, which seems to be a random tariff war, is not helping. And you can look at it on the stock market, though it's a little bit up today. Currently it's down 15.9%. Americans aren't going to stand for that. So I give him 30 days to turn this bloody ship around, or he's going to face a backlash from both, hopefully from these people in Congress, Republicans and Democrats, that don't like watching their 401ks turn into a 201k.
Well, I had a question for Dr. Sharif, and it actually involves what you just mentioned, because I was watching Professor Wolf, who is definitely a liberal person, but he definitely has some interesting ideas. And it kind of like comes down to what David Walker talks about with America still a superpower, but he's actually saying that we might be on the verge of collapse, and it might be a nation in collapse, meaning the United States. And he points out the comparison between the G7 and BRICS. And what I did not realize is that BRICS has a new member that has joined in. So the amount of people that is in BRICS and the amount of people that is in the G7 don't really compare, is what Mr. Wolf was saying. And all along those lines, because apparently Indonesia, which also has a very active population, and which I think is near Bangladesh, and all along those lines, is now a member of BRICS. So BRICS and the BRICS alliance is much stronger alliance than the G7 alliance. And that's what the point he was making, because even in terms of the products that are delivered to the world and in terms of the debt that is owed and all along those lines, we are in a worse situation. I'll have to find that video that I was watching last night from Professor Wolf and all in that space. But it was quite interesting to hear him speak about this. So I just wanted your take on the power of on the power of Indonesia, because apparently BRICS is now doubleized because it's India and Indonesia, and the two of them together have a tremendous amount of population and all along those lines. So we might be in trouble as a country. So anybody's take on that in this notion of a change in the world order?
I think BRICS is a problem. We'll listen to Dr. Sharif in a minute, but this is a big problem when you look at BRICS, Mark, and I'll tell you why. Let's look at who the players are in BRICS. Brazil. Now, Brazil in some cases are our friends, some cases not our friends. We're just not really sure about Brazil. Russia. we know where Russia stands. Putin said, "I'm not going to invade Ukraine." Then he invaded Ukraine, and then of course he's continuing this war that both parties are losing at. So Russia is not not some country to be admired. Then you have India. What is India doing in BRICS? India is pretty clever because they like to play both sides of the table. They're negotiating with JD Vance right now to increase trade with the United States. Then they'll turn around and work with Russia and China. So India is definitely make India great again. Okay, and they'll play both sides. China has been a one-way street. I mean, I like the Chinese people. I love the Chinese food, but they love to export and manufacture. But if you want to import, good luck. I know that Sharif might be able to figure a way to work with them, but the U.S., they're very challenging to work with. And they're also a strong economy. So, it's almost like you have to work with them. You just got to figure out how to do it. And then South Africa, what's South Africa doing teaming up with Russia? Why do we have anything to do with South Africa anymore? So, all these countries are what I call suspect countries. And now you can add Indonesia to the list. But we'll listen to Sharif because I don't think Bangladesh is part of it.
Yeah, interesting discussions. As you know, I'm also running the forum, and my forums, like all of the people like you, those who are open-minded, those who want to try to contribute and all of the things. Can I open the eyes for this, my North American friends? Look, when you discuss about BRICS, World Economic Forum, G7, UN and all of the big ally and all of the big things, try to understand it's a macroeconomics. Trust me, it does not have any impact in the grassroots level communities. Honestly speaking, around the world, all of the big political leaders and the big corporations, they only think about money. But my forum, even in Indonesia, I work with Muhammadiyah Foundations. Right? It's a grassroots level communities. Millions of people actually engage in these grassroots level communities. Let's say in the evening time, I'll always sit with this World Talent Economic Forum or this Sport TV, or I work with my North American friends and corporation and everything. So on the other hand, in the morning to evening, I go to all of the grassroots level community. I engage with them. I try to understand the economical impact, how they run their business and all of the things. Trust me, I'm very honest with you. It's all of the big things and the big discussions, and it does not have any impact in the grassroots level communities. So that is my advice for the big countries. Like, look, USA has modern science, USA has advanced people, USA has good cultures, USA has good entrepreneurial mindset. Why don't you involve with example Bangladesh, let's say my Rajbaris, grassroots level communities? It's untouched, it's virgin, and we can make business. Maybe what I see in Silicon Valley, many of the startups fail. Why they fail? I try to understand from them. They don't have enough customer, right? If they come to Bangladesh or they go to Africa or they go to Indonesia, it's a very good amount of customers and the communities and the business opportunities they can gain. So try to understand, even some point, this is my belief and my experience, the community developments is bigger than government, bigger than large corporation. What Pod TV is doing, Pod TV is developing a community around the world. So its capacity is some point much more bigger than governments. So if you can build up a good communities, you can build up a very good relationship. Still, there is a very good business. Still, there is a very good relationship. They are not the fight in between USA and Russia, like Palestine or Israel, Africa, and this and that. No, they are very virgin. They are very open, and never the media, the business analyst, the researcher, big research institution, big thing. They never focus on this community. So that is my request, that I can understand USA has very big economic trouble, all of the things, And definitely, USA has very good people like Nick Palveda, like Mark, or like Jatovi. So I believe that even a small initiative in some point, uh, it become big, and it can help you to grow your economy in very effective way. And according to Adam Smith, if you see this Asia Pacific, let's say Bangla, what we call Bongo, this Bangladesh, eastern part of China, and Africa, they were richest community once upon a time. So now this Asia Pacific is growing. You are talking about China, you are talking about South Asia, or you are talking about some point in Africa. They are growing, especially Asia Pacific. So I believe with this, your knowledge, with your expertise, if we go like a open society, why people go to USA? People go to USA because USA is an open society. Why I love USA? Honestly speaking, it's open society. You have culture, you have attitudes, because you are open minded, and you try to grow new economical aspect and everything. That's why everybody like cultural. Even Chinese people, you can say Chinese people hate each other. I have a lot of Chinese students. Everybody want to be American. They like American culture. Only things, it's an open society. They have freedom of speech. They have open society for creating new things. So I believe still it has a room. I can understand there are a lot of frustrations, but the global community, like global North and global South, we can work together, and we can solve many economic problems together. And I think this is very good opportunity for us. Thank you.
Yeah, well, thank you, Dr. Sharif. And see, that's one thing the United States should not ignore is the vast amount of human resources that exist in Bangladesh, India, China, Indonesia, that whole area of the world. You know, you're talking about billions and billions of people, like literally billions and billions of people, where the United States has 330 million, you know, and every time you say, well, Bangladesh is small, 170 million, that's half the size of the US. That's bigger than all of our states, I mean, individually. So I don't think we appreciate how large, in terms of the amount of people and the human resources that exist in that part of the world. And the United States is very much isolated. And with these tariffs, we become more isolated when, in fact, there's opportunities to work with these other countries and actually increase the GDP of everybody, which is what we were on track to do before these tariffs basically derailed us. And now we're facing maybe not so good of an economy. Now, I know that Jacoby is a big Trump supporter. So he's told me over and over again, he's favored of tariffs. He's favored whatever Trump does, he likes. But we need to hear from him anyway, because we always have to hear from the opposition. So Jacoby, have you changed your mind about Donald?
Changed my mind about who? About Trump?
Donald Trump, have you changed your mind?
Oh no. He's still inept, inadequate, deplorable, despicable. He doesn't know what he's doing. Like I said, he's unqualified for the position. We see why he bankrupted the casinos. So this is actually a good question, because there are two questions that come to mind always for me when thinking about this administration. One, why do people think Elon Musk is a genius? Why do people think that Donald Trump is a smart businessman? Both of those things have never been proven. Just because Elon Musk has money, that doesn't make him brilliant. He bought Tesla. He didn't make anything at Tesla. He bought SpaceX. He doesn't do anything with space. He tried to correct an astronaut, and the astronaut told him he was crazy and actually gave him the correct answer. So Elon Musk knows nothing about space. He bought SpaceX. He doesn't know anything about the internet, truthfully. He bought Starlink. He doesn't know anything really about social media. He bought Twitter. So sure, he got lucky when he bought these things, but also he had some failures along the way. And he actually lost money with Twitter because of what he's done. He's lost money with Tesla. He gambled and didn't want to get into the AI world with Tesla, which was a dumb move because they could have led the industry on because they had the head start. But he didn't do that. He held back, and the board got ticked off at him. And you know what he did to the board? He took his shares back. He bullied his shares back. So why do we consider him a genius? Because he's rich. Donald Trump would have made more money had he not touched the money that he was given. So how is he this brilliant businessman? He bankrupted multiple companies, but he's a brilliant businessman. Oh, he wrote a book on it. No, he had somebody write the book. So everything that people believe on these individuals is what kills me, because he's not a brilliant businessman. Never has been. He's been a bad businessman. The only thing that saved his skin was the fact that he had gone on the show where he coined the phrase "you're fired." Okay, that's your claim to fame. You bankrupted Trump University. You bankrupted Trump Steaks. You bankrupted all these other companies. You bankrupted a casino multiple times. So again, that's why we are where we are, because people believed in fairy tales. People complain, "Oh, well, you shouldn't believe in Santa Claus." Well, you believe Trump was a businessman. I'll take Santa Claus over that anyway.
Fairy tales are very real, but let's check this out. This is actually something that I was talking about when I said Mr. Wolf, and I'm not going to play the whole thing, but I want to play part of this and see what Nick's got to say about what he's saying, and all along those lines. I'm going to try to bring it up and all in that kind of way, but it's quite fascinating, and it was definitely interesting when he brought it up and all in that kind of way. So let's check this out and see what Mr. Wolf has to say about America collapsing like Rome. So it's actually narrated by somebody else, but check this out.
At a time of decline, and then when an empire declines, which is something we haven't gone through because empires don't decline very often. But let me tell you, from the history books, a little bit we can tell, it's not fun to be in a declining empire. Much more fun when the empire is going up, which was the last century or a century and a half of this country, the ride up. We are now on the ride down. China is winning. We are losing.
Richard Wolff, the famous economics professor from the University of Massachusetts, has come out and said that the fall of America is upon us. Now, is this true? To understand the argument, we need to rewind to the Vietnamese War. Do you remember what happened in what they call the Land of the Dragon?
Just to give you the context, the United States lost the war in Vietnam. When I say that in my classes, my students look at me, they never heard such a thought. America, as they know from the comic books they read as children, only wins wars. It doesn't lose wars.
Well, if we read through the history books, we find out that it's true. In 1973, American troops were forced to leave Vietnam, and in 1975, the Communist Party of North Vietnam captured Saigon, marking the official win for the communists. But this was not the only war that America lost. In 2021, the US withdrew its forces from Afghanistan after 20 long years in the country, fighting against the Taliban, who now run Afghanistan. As Wolf said, that's a pretty good sign that America lost. In Iraq, it was a similar story where the US were forced to withdraw in 2011. These are not the types of things that you generally hear from an empire at the peak of its powers. Normally, they can just easily win and have their own way.
Let me give you a couple of more, just bits of getting what decline means. Last week, something happened on the part of a country called Indonesia. I don't know if you're familiar with it. It's a remarkable country in Asia made up of 18,000 islands in the Pacific. It's a huge country. The population of Indonesia is 280 million people. Makes it one of the largest countries in the world. Let me remind you, the population of the United States is 330 million. 280 isn't that far less than 330. It's an enormous thing what they did. They joined the BRICS. They joined a full partner of the BRICS.
BRICS is an acronym that refers to a group of 5 major emerging economies. You've probably heard of them: Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. And now that I is a double I because Indonesia have joined. They have aligned themselves together to collaborate with each other on areas such as trade, investment, economic growth, and political coordination. In a way, you can think of it as them coming together and joining forces as a form of combating the power of the United States and their allies. BRICS, however, is not just a small alliance, it's a lot more powerful than you think. The core of BRICS is the C, China. China has a population of 1.4 billion people. Second biggest player is India, which has a population of 1.45 billion people. Russia's population is 145 million and is the largest country by land mass. And I'm not sure if you're aware, but they have a pretty strong military too. If we add all of the BRICS population together, including the newly joined Indonesia, they account for 45% of the world's population. The United States population is about 341 million, or 4% of the world. That's a big discrepancy.
In the words of, Mickey Mouse, uh-oh.
Now, if you think that this is an unfair comparison because it's one country versus an alliance of countries, okay, fair enough. Well, let's compare it to the G7. The G7, made up of Canada, France, Germany, Italy, Japan, the United Kingdom, and the United States, has a combined population of 777 million people. This accounts for 9.7% of the world's population. Again, 9.7% versus 45% does not look very strong.
Those odds are not so good, no matter how you cut it.
Okay, well, you might argue that this is just population. It's not economic might. It's not financial capability. Okay, fair point. Let's look at that. The way we measure economic strength is through what's called GDP, Gross Domestic Product, aka how much a country produces in a given year, how much output they give.
Okay, so if you take the BRICS together now, they are about 35%, maybe a bit more, total output of the world. If you add up each of those countries' total output in a year, and you add them up, they account for 36%, more or less, of the world's output. Now let's compare that to the United States and its major allies. Those are called the G7. Okay, that used to be the dominant player of the world. That used to be what world trade meant, what they did. Together that's all of them, now account for about 28% of the world's output. Do you understand?
So in terms of output, GDP, the G7 produces less than the BRICS. They have a much smaller population and produce a decent amount less goods and services. That gives you a feel for how the world order might be changing. The once dominant nation of America and its allies is not as strong as it used to be.
Now, if you're looking to where the wealth is, you go east, not west.
Back in the day, if you were a poor third world nation and you needed money to build your infrastructure and grow your economy, there would be one country that you would call. If you needed to build a hospital or a road for transport or a school for education, you would get on the phone to a US diplomat or US business and say, hey, we need a loan here. We need your technology, or we need your resources or your know-how. But today, these third world nations are instead picking up the phone to an entirely different country.
If you're a poor third world country, as we used to call them, and you need money for a build railroad, or you need to find places to sell your exports, you direct your diplomats first to go to Beijing, because that's where it's at. If you can't get a good deal there, well, you might go to London or Washington. But whatever you are doing, you're going to play them against each other. You're going to say to the Americans, oh, that's the best you offer? Let's go the other place, see what they offer. You want to know why most of the railroads being built in Africa today are being built by the Chinese? There's your answer. They got a better deal.
In Kenya, China funded the Standard Gauge Railway, which connects Nairobi to Mombasa. In Sri Lanka, China has invested in the development of the Hambantota Port and Colombo Port City. In Venezuela, China has helped build power plants and signed joint ventures with the state-run oil company. Across in Egypt, China are a key partner in the development of the new Suez Canal area. No matter what quote-unquote third world country you go to, no matter which continent, you will find the Chinese there.
Because you live in a country which is pretending to itself that none of this is going on. It's either never discussed or we turn it around and we say, the Chinese are becoming aggressive in the world. Huh? They're doing what exactly we did. You know how the United States became a big, powerful country? By doing to Europe what the Chinese are doing to us. It's not new. It's not different. The emperor in Rome didn't suffer the way the average people did. The emperor in Persia or the emperor in Greece, it doesn't matter. All the empires show the same phenomena. One more example, and then I'll stop and tell you what this all means. So 15 years ago, all the car companies said, hooray, here's how we hold on to our profits by making these private cars for everybody. And they all went to work to compete. And there was a winner. As of 3 years ago, one company figured out how to make the best quality electric cars and trucks at the lowest price, which is what competition is supposed to result. And I'm sure you all know the name of this company. It's the BYD Corporation. Let me do that again. B as in boy, Y as in yellow, D as in dog, BYD. Now, your faces give you away. You never heard of this place or this thing. What is it?
Of course, we all thought he was going to say Tesla. So why does Wolf say that BYD is winning the EV game? Well, they have found a way to make an electric car for a price of, well, let me ask you, how much do you think they sell this electric car for, called the Seagull? $40,000 like the Tesla Model 3? $28K like the Nissan Leaf? No, BYD Seagull sells for $11,500. That is 1/4 of the price of Tesla's cheapest car. Now, to say that they're winning the EV race, that's a controversial statement, but if you go outside of the US, BYD cars are selling like hotcakes on a cold winter's day. Okay, in China, obviously BYD are at the #1 mark, having top EV sales charts in that country for several years. But expand out to Asia. In Thailand, they are the top-selling electric vehicle brand. In 2024, the BYD Dolphin led the EV market with 13,000 units sold. In Australia, they only entered the market in 2022, and now nearly 1/4 of every EV sold there is BYD. In Brazil, BYD has successfully introduced both electric buses and passenger EVs into the country. In 2023, BYD's Dolphin became the best-selling electric car in Brazil. You see that these quote-unquote third-world nations, let's take out Australia from that, but they're sourcing things from China because China can provide them what they want at the most competitive price.
China is winning. We are losing.
Okay, now let's fast forward to what's happening in the current day. One of the most worrisome supply chain strangleholds over the West and over the United States is, without a doubt, China's near monopoly status of critical minerals. This past week in breaking news, China suspended exports of 7 critical rare earths to all countries. Shipment stops risking shortages for US defense and tech. Trump's next move was to sign an executive order on minerals, invoking the Defense Production Act to fast-track US mining, targeting copper, uranium, and rare earths. Here's quoted, "This is a gold rush for America's future. Nobody's stopping us." The American businesses that will help solve the supply chain issue are taking on some of the world's most pressing problems. And there's big opportunity here because right now there are 0, not 1, operational tungsten mines on US soil. The Defense Department now funds rare earth projects because tungsten is indispensable for military, and like I said, there are no active mines on US soil as we speak. There is huge opportunities for the companies that can revive this industry. This is the perfect time to talk about the sponsor of today's video, American
Tungsten, really?
Yeah, there's more of that goes on and everything like that. But yeah, that was just some of what they were talking about that I found fascinating last night. But what is your thoughts on that? Because it definitely even talks more about what else he had going on. Because he even talks about this notion of zombies and companies that earn just enough money to continue operating and service debt, but are unable to pay off their own debt. So he said there's a lot of zombie companies around the U.S. at the debt, which we were talking about on the show as well, because they even talked about later on in the presentation about the debt being at 31.5 trillion and everything like that. So it goes into more details and some things that we've talked about here on this network and everything like that. So what's your take? Because I think a lot of what he said is what we heard from David Walker and others. So we might be on.
That was a great video, Mark. We should show that again tomorrow. it's got a lot of staying power. I don't know where you got it from, but it actually demonstrates a problem that the people in the United States are asleep about, which is the rest of the world and how our position is in the world. It's a deteriorating position. Whether or not the U.S. loses by year 2040, if you just look at numerically, China will overtake the United States as the world power. The only question isn't if, it's when at this point in time. So I guess, Sharif, you're going to have to learn Mandarin. I don't know what else to say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I can remember even I teach in the Chinese school. Most of my Chinese students want to be American
Mhm.
in Malaysia, in Singapore. So
Right.
it's actually because of Hollywood, because of social media, Facebook and YouTube and all of the things. Even though you come to Bangladesh and meet with even, let's say, the grassroots level communities, they know very well about California, about USA, about the culture and all of the things. So honestly speaking, in terms of democracy, in terms of media, in terms of knowledge, in terms of education, still US has very big impact, even in
Mhm.
Asia Pacific. Very, very big impact. If you go to any universities, you can find, example, in Dhaka universities, you go and you find all of our curriculum for undergraduate and masters and everything. It's American curriculums. If you go to our media house, you find that they are heavily engaged with this Hollywood concept and all of the things. If you see our political influence, it's heavily depend on Facebook. It's a US
Mhm.
company. That is reality. That is fact. That is still fact. That is still happening. If you see the even our mullahs, our Muslim scholars, they go for scholarly discussion. They use YouTube heavily, right? So drinks means Coca-Cola. It's American company. So maybe we hate American so much. On the other hand, we are used to use your culture, your education, your concepts, and everything. So I think America um, will not end very soon. But I
No.
think you have to engage with more grassroots level communities and bring all of your innovations and make good things. That's why our World Talent Economic Forum with American universities and with Japanese university, we build up this Kokoro, this wisdom app, as well as we build up this leadership program. So we want better leaders. So the Taiwan, the Vietnam, Singapore, Bangladesh, India, Pakistan, all of the students actually join in these things. So I believe still we can be very good friend and we can change our world.
Yeah, it
Yep.
makes a lot of sense.
You have
Just,
something else up there, Mark?
I'm just gonna play a little bit more clips of it
Yeah.
and everything, and then we'll get ready to wrap up and all along those lines. But this part was interesting as well because it was actually dealing with more of the our role in society. So it's kind of like that collapse part. But
In the world by countries.
Well,
The second biggest creditor of the United States is the biggest debtor is the People's Republic of China. Do you understand? The United States owes China $850 billion, roughly.
Now we are getting pretty deep into the rabbit hole. You're telling me for every tax dollar that is paid by the American citizen, whether that be from the salary that they earn to the tax that they pay on a loaf of bread, a portion goes to the People's Republic of China? Well, let's go to our good friend Google just to double check this. How much money does the United States owe China? Says as of February 2025, China holds approximately 768.6 billion of US debt, making it one of the largest foreign holders of US Treasury securities. China's holdings represents a significant portion of the total US national debt, which was around $8.6 trillion as of February 2025. Japan is the largest foreign holder of US debt with holdings around 1.1 trillion. So let's think about it. What does owning the debt actually mean? It just means that the United States owes China money. When you owe someone money, you have to pay it back as well as interest on the money owed.
Yeah. Did you say something to Toby?
Yeah. We can get right down to the nitty gritty instead of, because right now I think a lot of it is, still above everyone's head. But if you think about the practical, because they brought I when we were talking cars yesterday with David, that's why I brought up BYD, because BYD actually has a lot of tech going on. Matter of fact, and instead of speaking this is what I was trying to speak about, because this is what they're talking about, how we're not leading the market because we're not innovating. Right now, the U.S. is a service industry, is a service market. It's not really an innovative market. We haven't invested much in the education. So our creative side is what we sell. And that goes into the messaging, which is what Dr. Sharif was talking about, is why people want to come to America, because they see these bright lights in Hollywood, but they don't see the realities of the situation. So in terms of the innovation, check this out. This is what BYD is doing. And this is the minivan that they're bringing out, which is going to be a lot cheaper than everything else. And this is why, like I said, why they're leading the market, why they're doing things more so than you've got all this extra tech. None of that's on the Town and Country. None of this is on your any of the Chrysler, because Chrysler Pacifica right now is the biggest minivan, the hottest seller in the U.S. This stuff isn't there. This external speaker, this stuff's not there. This is forward thinking. Things that we are not having in our market currently at this moment. And this is an electric vehicle, which is, there's no real electric vehicle in the minivan market right now. Chrysler Pacifica is trying to do that, but no. This is gonna, if this were to hit the US, yeah, it would beat out the Pacifica easily. Because also it's cheaper.
Yep.
Yeah, this is all the tech coming out of it. But yes, again, I just wanted to show this is where they are in terms of their technology and where they're pushing it, and they're going cheap with it. Because a minivan right now, the top minivan that you're going to look at that would be comparable to this, you're looking at $60,000.
都是皮的，
Easily.
硬的。
This right here, if I remember, is a lot cheaper.
Yeah, it's kind of like the other one that he was mentioning on his presentation. It was like 10,000. It's usually 40,000 here, and everything like that. I will say that I did like their marketing employee by using pop culture references like Mickey Mouse and the Captain America reference. I did think that they were trying to make it more understandable to the common person in the presentation.
Well, on top of this, if you want to go even more on a granular level, even deeper down, right now, the number one reading material in the U.S. or the top reading material, can you guess what it is?
Manga's
the number one. Manga comes out of Japan. It deals with Japanese animation and stuff like that. That's anime. However, China has Danhua, and that's Japanese animation, and that's also starting to take off really well. Matter of fact, there's a South Korean anime that is one of the top animes that's out there called Solo Leveling. So in terms of even the entertainment market, it's starting to be encroached on because, again, that creative level, that lack of spending and pushing in education. And Nick, when you talk about, we want to defund these halls and the music industry and all this other stuff and all these other places, Well, you know who funds these and actually pushes that creativity? That's what's creeping in. That's why anime is really taking off and taking over, because we don't have that in the back in that background anymore. It's we don't have that Captain America running around anymore. No, you got My Hero Academia with All Might dominating more so than Captain America.
Right.
So it's just
I think we're gonna have to leave now. But before we leave, Mark, let's make sure we put out a new Marvel movie so everybody still believes America's great. We'll have Captain America floating around and doing everything. This way, Sharif will still say, "Oh, America's still pretty good."
there is another Marvel movie. There are two Marvel movies coming out.
America's still pretty good. We have Captain America. Excuse me, we have the Hulk.
I guess we're gonna hit the button now.